Hey guys, welcome back. Happy New Year. I'm shooting this today is January 2nd and it's a lovely sunny day here in New Jersey, but very, very crisp. If this is your first time stopping here and you want to hear me talk about tomatoes, welcome. My name is Leigh and this is our backyard garden. If you go back through our old videos, you'll see we grow tons and tons of tomatoes, and at times you may hear very obnoxious parrots screaming in the background. And I do my very, very best to make sure that doesn't happen, but I can't really control it. So that was just a warning. But today I'm going over my new tomato varieties plus faves and fails. So I'm sure many of you, like myself, have received at least one catalog, most likely Baker Creek, and you're trying to decide what new tomatoes you might be ordering for the 2024 garden season. So I thought I'd show you which tomato varieties I have that are new and which ones are my faves and fails, so you can take that into consideration when you're making a decision. So last year, while MI Gardener was having that massive sale, I took advantage of it since they were only $1 a pack, and I bought a bunch of new varieties, and I wanted to share those with you today. One of the first tomatoes that I grabbed was the pineapple tomato. Now I'm always looking for a tomato that has some sweetness and low acidity for me. I take that into consideration because I do get acid reflux, and I've never been a tomato fan until, truly like sliced in my salad and on sandwiches until this past summer. And I'll get into it with you which ones in my faves, what really turned me around. Now, I do have a tomato allergy, I thought. And while I'm sensitive to it, really, I think that I might be allergic to either non-organic or store-bought tomatoes somehow, because I did not get an allergy last year. But anyway, I'm hoping that the pineapple tomato, with its size and its different colors, which I love, is going to be very, very satisfying to me. I always try to keep in mind, this is saying it's a 75-day tomato. Plan on 80 when you put this in your garden, and these are big tomatoes. Know if you're going to buy something like this, it's going to need a lot of space to grow wide unless you're going to keep it pruned to a single stem, and it's going to grow very, very tall, and it's going to need substantial staking, trellising, tying off, all of those things. So when you grow a big giant tomato like this, and you're going to be hoping it grows to £1 a piece, you're going to want to make sure it will stand up. Another tomato I've been wanting to try is the Genovese Castelluto. Quite honestly, I've been totally attracted to its shape because I had another mystery tomato that I talked about all last year, and actually the year before, where I still don't know what the tomato is, but it grows mixed in with some San Marzanos that I have. And we think it might be some type of an Abruzzi pear, but the shape of it just did something to me. And every time I see this tomato, I want to try it, so I went ahead and grabbed it. And I'm hoping I'm going to be able to utilize this one in both sauces and slicing for salads and sandwiches. And this tomato is saying is 75 to 90 days and is indeterminate. So again, this is another tomato that you're going to want to be prepared to truss and trellis. Now, this here is the story that Luke tells about his giant crimson tomato. And for a while they were sold out and you couldn't even get them. Now, since it was $1 for one pack, you do only get a few seeds. Look there's only approximately 5 seeds in this pack. It's an 85 to 90 day maturity, but I'm really only going to try 2 of these 5 seeds to see what happens. I'm not going to spend them all in one growing season. So I'm really curious. He tells wonderful stories. You may want to check it out on MI Gardener's site, and he can tell you all about the giant crimson. And if any of you out there who are watching this have grown the giant crimson in the past and you have some reviews that you can give me, please make comments below. I'm really curious to hear what your opinion is of that tomato. Another tomato that I've been wanting to grow for a very long time is the German pink. This is an 85 to 90 day. This is another one of these big giant tomatoes that are very demanding and intimidating at times, because you're going to need to make sure they're well trussed, well pruned, keeping into consideration that when you don't prune these types of tomatoes properly, that you're very susceptible to blight irregular water uptake, and they're hungry. They want a lot of fertilizer, and you have to make sure you're watering them properly. And keeping them pruned is important because the insects really do like these types of tomatoes. So when you get something that grows big and tall like these, you want to make sure that you're prepared to maintain them. I also heard wonderful things about Arkansas Traveler, and I'm always looking for something that is similar to the Parks Whopper, which I'm about to get into now. Now, the interesting thing is that this is 75 to 115 days to maturity, which is wow. I mean, you know, maybe I might get some late summer tomatoes out of this, but I heard wonderful things from other people saying online, like if you go to some of the Facebook forum pages or Instagram, people will go on to this and, you know, ask, hey guys, what's your favorite tomato? Many people said Arkansas Traveler. I don't like waiting 115 days for a tomato, but since we're going to have so many varieties, it will give me an opportunity to try it. Unlike the Parks Whopper, this takes so many days at 75 to 115 days. But it's about the size and shape that you want when you don't want to cut into a big, giant slicing tomato. These smaller ones can be very useful at times. So now I'm going to head into my faves and fails. Now, I just spoke about Parks Whopper tomato. And I don't know if any of you have ever tried these out here before. You'll see they come in a slightly different package. These tomato seeds are expensive, and you get, I think, about 25 or 30 in a pack. Park Seeds charges for shipping and handling and energy surcharges when you order through them, which I don't really like. However, I've been growing Parks Whopper tomato for, I don't know, 11 or 12 years now. We did grow them in our last property, and we started growing these right away when we moved into this house in 2014. This Parks Whopper is also available and grown by Bonnie's. It's sold in big box stores like Lowe's and Home Depot, and this is an F1 hybrid. So they've tried to work the kinks out of it, but somewhere along the line, this went from being a really wonderful tomato that showed up in 55 to 60 days in the garden, grew the most lush, beautiful, tall plants that would get at least 10, 12 feet tall if you didn't really manage them properly. Very bushy and dense foliage, and the tomatoes were on the large side, very juicy, deep red, without an overly gelatinous center. And as I talk about these tomatoes that are faves and fails, we're going to try to get some pictures or video clips that we'll insert as we go through the archives. But this tomato definitely changed. I want to say about 3 years ago, we realized that it wasn't getting as tall and truly indeterminate as it once did. And in the past, like I said, it would show up in 55 to 60 days, and we always had a Parks Whopper tomato on the counter by the first week of July, and they remained on the counter very, very prolifically growing all summer long into October and into the freeze. And right before the freeze, we would pull them off green and we would let them sit on the windowsill, and we always had tomatoes until December. Now they seem to grow like more of like a determinate tomato. They stay much smaller. You still get that early harvest, but they don't stay around long. They tend to putter out very easily, and their blossoms seem to suffer when the heat strikes. And they kind of go to sleep for, you know, a good month and a half, and then they start to show up again later in the summer when it cools off. And they will hang around a little bit into late summer and fall, but they're not as big or flavorful as they used to be. Now, I will go ahead and still continue to grow the Parks Whopper tomato until I've really had about enough of it. But like I said in the past, this was my ride or die tomato. Now, I'm still going to grow it. I'm a creature of habit. I will still grow 6 plants from seed. Last year was my first time ordering from Parks directly and growing it from seed. It did much better from seed than it did from buying the starter plants in Lowe's or Home Depot. Now, a lot of people, you know, don't have the time or the space to do seedlings in their kitchen, and you don't have a greenhouse. But I will say that tomatoes that I have grown from seed perform much, much better than the tomatoes I buy in the store. And the tomatoes bought in the store, they always start off kind of strong. They come home usually with very thick, dark green stems, but boy, they really put those tomatoes through some rigors before they even get to your home, between weather and temperature changes and storms blowing them over, and you don't really know what happened to them. Sometimes you'll go to the store. Has this ever happened to you? You've gone to Lowe's after a storm and the tomatoes will be blown all over the ground, labels all over the ground, and someone will come along and kindly pick them up, or an employee will get to it, and before you know it, labels are going back into random containers, and you may not even really be getting the tomato that you think, because usually at least one windstorm or some type of rainstorm is going to knock the labels out of many tomato plants. So it could even happen before it even gets to you, where they got over, or somebody just stuck the wrong label in. And I mean, even when you buy seeds, you can't even really be 100%, but you're going to hope that you're getting the right tomato, which again, I'll go back to saying I have a mystery tomato growing. I still have no idea what it is. Fave, it is a favorite of mine. Is it a fail yet? Not yet, but Parks Whopper is starting to work its way down my list of favorite tomatoes, getting to be something that I just grow. Now, a tomato that I really wanted to grow all along was the classic beefsteak, and for whatever reason, I could not get this thing to grow healthy. It suffered terribly from blight. It would not produce fruit. This year, I fed it so heavily and gave it plenty of room to grow, and the classic beef was one of our best performers last year, yielding very large tomatoes. Not a tremendous amount, but it was a healthy yield, and they did stay around in the garden late in the season, but it does take them more than between 75 and 90 days to actually produce. Hungarian Heart is another one that takes a long time to show up, but I've been growing this for a few seasons now, and these fruits are gigantic. They're very, very dense. They don't have really much of a gelatinous pocket inside, very low amount of seeds. You can use these for anything. They are delicious in salad. They're delicious sliced on a tomato. You can make them into sauce. You can freeze them. You can do many, many things. Hungarian Heart is a tomato that I highly recommend. I also highly recommend that you're prepared to give this ample trussing and trellising, and be prepared to get out there and manage it, because it does really want to trail. And when it throws off a 1 pound fruit, you want to make sure you have it tied off nicely so you don't lose it, because it will pull the whole plant down, and before you know it, you're going to end up with pest pressure. Now, the Hungarian Heart, I want to say, you'll see I bought this in the My Gardener sale. Sorry, I've got some wacky lighting going on here. The Oxheart or the Hungarian Heart grows in slightly different cultivars. Some are pink, some are red. So I figured I grab the My Gardener version as well and see if one performed better than the other. But we won't know until the summertime, so you'll have to stay tuned to see what happens for that. Okay, there we go. I had to adjust you for the light. Now, a tomato that was new to me this year is the Brandy Wine Pink. This is the famous potato leaf tomato that everyone talks about. And wow, the Brandy Wine grew a beautiful, thick tomato that again was perfect for many, many things. It showed up relatively quick in the garden, and I'm trying to look here and see if it says how long it's supposed to take, but I'm not seeing that. I want to say that it was probably about 70 days, 80 days until I started seeing my Brandy Wine tomatoes. And I'll tell you, they suffered from blight very, very quickly, but then they came back around and they corrected themselves, and they lasted until long in the season. My recommendation for this is that you isolate this tomato if you grow a lot of different varieties on one big trellis, which is what we do. And I'm not so worried about it because I'm not trying to harvest my own seed yet, so I'm not really worried about cross-pollination at this point. I'm more worried about what's going to be disease resistant and carry through the rest of the tomatoes. This guy brought a little bit of blight into my garden this year, so and it happened fast. I tried pruning it off and it just wanted to take over. But like I said, this was a very determined tomato and it produced beautiful, beautiful fruit. So I do recommend the Brandy Wine and I will be growing it in my garden this year. Now, this tomato here, Kellogg's Breakfast. Wowee. This is what really, this was one of the first yellow tomatoes to show up. And for the size of it, it's a giant tomato. It slices beautifully. It's very meaty and juicy and sweet. It was everything that you want a tomato to be, plus the beautiful bright yellow color, which was so fascinating. I initially got fruit early in the season. They were very low on the plant and they produced heavy, and they took a really long time to get ripe. And then the rest of the tomato plant took a very long time to catch up. Now, I could have probably cut that off at the pass by eliminating these blossoms early in the season, which I think I'm going to do this coming year. If they start to produce too soon, I'm just going to cut them off and let the top of the plant produce, because they did get pest pressure. But the first tomatoes that I pulled off were so incredible. And then I took a break and it did the same thing where it got a little sick, and then it took off later on in the year and produced giant, massive fruit. Some of them were well over a pound and they were so beautiful. I became highly territorial over them, and this is one that I didn't really want to share with anyone when I gave my tomatoes away. The Kellogg's Breakfast Yellow Tomato is everything you want a tomato to be. Again, you're going to want to be prepared for heavy trussing, trellising, staking, caging, everything you can do to keep these guys in the spot where you want them, because they want to take over and they want to ramble. So that's something to take into consideration. Now, the Abe Lincoln tomato, I had so much hope for this. I grew 5 of them. I think only 3 of them really remained viable, and they took forever, like 120 days, and they didn't grow to the size that I had hoped. Now, I'm thinking that maybe they're just a really competitive tomato. The ones that I did get, they had wonderful flavor. So I think I'm going to isolate these onto another trellis area and try one more time to see how well they do, because there were really good reviews online from many people who have been growing the Abe Lincoln tomato for years, because we like big, giant, meaty, slicing tomatoes for our sandwiches and our salads in the summer. I do also like to have something that I can use in sauces and that will freeze well. So we'll give Abe Lincoln a try again, and it's not on the fail list yet. But when I think about other tomatoes that grow big and meaty, I have to decide, what's actually going to make it into the garden. We now have several separated trellis areas for our tomatoes, so I can see what works best and what is getting maximum sun exposure, with an opportunity to offer it some shade if I have to in the heat of summer, where, tomatoes, they like the sun, but they don't always like that scorching heat. It affects their blossoms. So I'm not sure what went on with the Abe Lincoln. I don't know if it was a heat issue dropping. It did have blossom drop very, very rapidly. So that could have been the problem. But I think it's also just one of these really very hungry and thirsty tomatoes that does not want to have competition around its root base. So I'm going to try to isolate it and baby it and see if I cooperate with it, if it will cooperate with me. Now I'm going to show you my 2 absolute favorite tomatoes. I will grow over and over and over again. Turned out to be Mortgage Lifter. Everyone recommends this tomato. It was so incredible. I think I had Mortgage Lifters probably 60 to 65 days after we put them in the ground, which was, I believe, around Mother's Day for us here in New Jersey. Sometimes we can plant the first week in May. Our weather is just changing rapidly here. So I was so happy when this showed up, not knowing what it was going to do. Wow, Mortgage Lifter grows aggressive, very tall, truly indeterminate vines. Again, you want heavy staking, heavy caging. Be prepared to tie it off. Order yourself some of the clear clips that you can get from Amazon, or the little like Gorilla Clippy kind that you can get. I'm trying to find some lighting here for you, that you can get at the dollar store or Amazon, wherever you like to get your supplies. This thing needs to be managed. Now, it did well. I grew 3 tomatoes, probably way too close together. And then I had a 4th extra that I isolated off in the part of the garden where it's like, all right, I'm gonna throw these tomatoes over here and see what happens. They actually did tremendously well with just 1 plant. 1 plant gave me as much fruit as 3 plants that were grown closer together and heavily pruned. So if you want a tomato that you don't really want to get into pruning so much because it just gets to be too much, you will get a lot of fruit for this. Now, they grow very, very big, and so be prepared. 1 mortgage lifter plant is enough for 2 people or even several people in your family. You'll have enough to share. So this is probably my top pick right here for a red tomato. For my yellow tomato, it's Dr. Witchy's. The light is testing me today, you guys. So this guy here does not grow as big as the Kellogg's breakfast, but wow, what a beautiful golden tomato. Fairly disease resistant until the end of the year. And it had some pest pressure, but not really too much. But it's aggressive, and it wanted to grow and produce fruit all through the season. I literally had Dr. Witchy's every single day all through the summer. This is my absolute favorite. I cannot overemphasize when I tell you about Indeterminate tomatoes that you want to prepare to trellis, truss, and cage these tomatoes. Have numerous sticks available. If you're not going to keep them pruned to 1 stem, you're going to let them ramble for a higher yield. Remember, you may have a new plant that will come off from, there's your parrots, my parrots. They have to get involved in every video. I would have to go and add stakes to tie off some of the stems where I didn't cut the suckers off, and they become whole entire other plants that that will grow. So if you really want to control it, you might want to try to do your best to keep this a single stem plant so that you can manage it. He makes it very difficult for me to complete a video. But yeah, so Dr. Witchy's is not just one of my favorite yellow tomatoes, it's one of my all-time favorite tomatoes. I highly recommend. Top pick here. So I had to go settle the birds so I don't have like ear screeching, the screeching. What did someone say? That it was ear shattering. I agree with you 100%. You know who you are in New York. But anyway, so they were my faves, and they are the tomatoes that made the cut for the 2024 garden. Now, a few free tomatoes that I got this year that, again, I don't know what they will do. I'm going to try a Bonnie's Best. I got this as a free seed with one of my last orders. I think it was a promo of some sort. I'm not really sure. But this had some decent reviews, so I thought, okay, it looks like a smaller tomato. I'm going to try to find a place for it in our ever-expanding garden and see what it does, because I'm always looking for another tomato to add to my favorites. A tomato that was a free seed, but I don't think it's going to make the garden this year, is this spoon tomato. From what I hear, it's the gift that keeps on giving, and I used to grow sweet 100s. My friend would buy a 4-pack from the farmer's market, and she would give one to me. And like 4 years ago, I had one growing, and they just like explode when they get hot. And you will have Sweet 100 tomato volunteers in your garden forever once they pop, and they just go everywhere. So quite frankly, if I want a small tomato, I'm just going to grab one of those volunteers that I know are going to show up, because the volunteers volunteered and volunteered. It's like a whole family of tomato volunteers that moved in. I heard that the spoon tomato is very tiny and very sweet, but it's annoying because it's like it becomes a weed. And once you get a weedy tomato plant in your garden, they prune out easy. Like you can go weed them out very easy, but who wants one more thing to weed? So I'm not going to get rid of this packet of free seeds. I'm curious to try them, but I don't know if I have the patience for that this year because we have so much going on. But you might be hearing about this one in the future. Just keep in mind, if you got this as a free seed, go online and look at stories of people telling you how this spoon tomato is the gift that keeps on giving. Now, there is a tomato that I wanted to talk about as a sauce tomato, but Amish Paste. You can use this. This is a thick, deep red, meaty tomato that is totally versatile. You can use it in salad, you can use it in sauce. I'm keeping it in my slicing tomato varieties because of its versatility. If you're growing this, this is one of the highest recommended, versatile, all around use tomatoes that you can grow is Amish Paste. It grows all season long, big, giant tomatoes. They freeze well. They stand. Another thing that I talk about is how well they stand on the counter while you're waiting for them to ripen. Amish Paste hangs around for a really long time. So I had bought it from M.I. Gardner as well the year before, and I wanted to grow them side by side. And it kind of seemed like at first the M.I. Gardner variety was doing better than the Baker Creek, and I really couldn't figure out why. By the end of the season, they kind of caught up to each other, so they were truly the same tomato. But they grew wonderfully, and no matter where you buy Amish Paste from, definitely buy it either way. Look for the best price. They grow really well, and it's a tomato you're going to want in your garden. Super aggressive, indeterminate tomato, stays in the garden for a really long time. Now, this year, I'm going to pass on growing my grape and tomato varieties, and I'll tell you why. Chadwick cherry. Wow, this is an amazing tomato. It's a very large two-biter cherry tomato. It grows seriously aggressive vines. You need to manage this thing. And if you don't manage it, the bugs get into it and they ripen really, really fast. This is one of the first tomatoes to show up in the garden. So if you're not gonna have a ton of varieties and you don't mind managing a pole cherry tomato, this guy's gonna grow super tall. It needs a lot of staking. It throws off serious fruit, lots of volunteers. They pop and explode everywhere. And I've always loved them, but John said that they were not a fave of his. He preferred to have a Sweet 100 if he was going to have a cherry tomato. So I had like 2 packs of these guys. I'm gonna take a break from these. If you are growing tomatoes that you're going to decide to just opt out of for the year, keep them in a cool, dry place and your tomato seeds will last for a very long time. So this year, it's not really a fail. I'm just passing on the cherry tomato this year. I'm also passing on my Borghesies because these do the same thing as the Chadwick cherry. They just need to be managed. And they get a lot of fruit flies and a lot of pest pressure, and I just didn't want to deal with it. And I had planted all of these things for the 2023 garden. The light is testing me again, you guys. And early in the season, they just started to go through their demanding cycle, and I had had enough, and I said, John, please just rip out the cherry and the grape tomatoes. It broke my heart to do it. But they were popping everywhere. They were making a big mess. And they weren't standing very long. So we were harvesting them and bringing them in, and they were just juicing themselves immediately in containers. They were popping all over the table. So I said, I've had enough of that. I lost my patience last year. The Grape Tomato had great reviews online about how they grow on, good stems, and you can pull them off and they will hang on the stem and they will take a long time to ripen, and you can let them sit for a long time, and that they, will grow in cooler weather. But the experience that I had with this grape tomato was that it was a very squatty, like determinate shaped plant. And boy, but did it produce some grape tomatoes. They were serious production tomatoes, but these are more for cooking, and they don't have the sweet pop that a true grape tomato has. So if you're looking to grow this grape tomato as like a salad tomato, the Grape Inverno is better, more like the Borghese, where it's good for cooking and making into sauces or drying them out for sun-dried or slow oven-dried tomatoes. So this year I'm taking a break. 2 things that not really a total fail, I got as free tomatoes. Thorburns Terracotta. So many people love this tomato, and I just couldn't get past the green gel inside of it. It kind of freaked me out. It's a beautiful terracotta color. It had decent flavor. I didn't love it. John liked it, and a few other people that I shared it with said that it was good. And I had to warn everybody, look, this tomato is green inside, and you might think it's not ripe when it really is. The thing that upset me about the Thorburns Terracotta, and the Black Beauty, which is a beautiful tomato. I'm going to talk more about this. These attracted so many fruit flies. When I harvested them, they were just full of fruit flies. My house became infested with fruit flies. They didn't stand very long. They would just ripen really, really quick. And as soon as I harvested them, I had to either be prepared to eat them, share them, or get them into the freezer. Now I have a few that I froze that held up really well, and I froze them in July, and I just used them last week in a soup. And they did okay, but I'm going to take a break from this and give myself the opportunity to grow a few of the other tomatoes that I showed you that were new on the list. I just don't know how I feel about Thorburns Terracotta. Definitely not my favorite. Now the Black Beauty and the Thorburns Terracotta were some of the first plants to produce in the garden. So we had fruit very, very rapidly from these. And the Black Beauty grew just so pretty. It's such a pretty tomato in its black purple shades, and the bottom is green until it's ripe, and you'll know when to pick it because the bottom turns a beautiful blush color. It was a good size, perfect size for a single tomato type, like a salad tomato where you just want to pull, one tomato off, or good size for slicing for a sandwich. But it didn't want to sit on the counter very long. And again, the fruit fly issue. So I didn't freeze any of these. I became highly annoyed by them. And I just kind of ignored them. And I realized every time I went to harvest some, there were bad tomatoes all through the vines. So the only thing that I really liked about it was that it showed up again late in the season, produced a massive amount of flowers, and I did get some late season harvests from them. So this is not a tomato I would recommend you rush out and buy. You might do better with one of the Crim varieties if you're looking for a black or purple tomato. So that was really the heart of my slicing and salad tomato varieties for 2024. I'm about to do a separate video for you based on tomatoes that I recommend for tomato sauce or tomato gravy, depending on what school of thought you come from. So you'll want to stay tuned for that. And if this video helps you guys, please give it a thumbs up, make some comments, and interact with us. We absolutely love getting to know you. Please subscribe to our channel, hit the notification bell so you never miss a new video. We have a ton of stuff coming up for 2024. And while we don't really consider ourselves teachers, we would like to consider ourselves as garden motivators and inspirational people that you can follow as we go on this garden journey with you. So again, I hope this helped. I hope to hear what you're wanting to plant. And if you have any questions, we answer every single comment that you may leave. So I will be happy to answer any questions for you. And like I said, if we have any pictures, I'm going to add them in so you can have a look at what our garden looked like. So please go back through our video library and look at some of our summer videos so you can see what our garden looked like as we were growing if you're new here. And I also have a video that I can link below of my 2023 selection video that I talked about for everything that I grew. So you may not need to watch that, but at least you'll be able to see where my head was at when I was planning for the 2023 garden. And you guys, I'm always willing to try something new. And I'm always happy to tell you the truth about my findings. So anyway, like I said, guys, I hope to see you in the next video. Happy New Year, happy growing, and I'm just really excited for the 2024 garden. Hope to see you in the next video.